What's up, guys? My name is Con, and we're back today with more Railroads Online, and we've got a very special episode today. We're actually joined by two of the devs. We've got Hyce, which is just old news at this point, and we've got Peyton, which is another one of the devs, one of the modelers for Railroads Online, and Peyton is apparently an expert track builder, so we're going to use this episode to have Peyton go and fix the line to the iron mine while Hyce and I just sit here and watch. No, that's not true. Hyce is going to run this train and get some wood for us and bring more wood up to the iron mine while I make sure Peyton's work. Yeah. Can we get characters? Can we? Who's in charge of the characters?
we'll get there eventually. Don't worry about it.
I need like just a hat. Just let me change my hat color. You know what I mean? Like that's all I need to do. But anyway, yeah, Hyce is gonna take the class 70 here and go up to the iron mine, and we're gonna take the Eureka with the caboose up there, Peyton. And you probably can't see it, but yeah, we're gonna take that. And you can look at my amazing track and compliment it and then fix it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We're being press ganged into slave labor. I didn't sign up for this.
Hey, you guys offered to fix some tracks, so I figure we'll put you to work right away. Hyce's baby, I know this started sparking debate as soon as Peyton joined the server. Hyce says the Class 70 is his baby. Peyton potentially disagrees.
I'm not sure. He's operated it, but I modeled it, so it is very near and dear to my heart.
So how many? So I guess the question is, what do you actually do with the railroad devs? You model all the engines, everything, track as well, or bridges?
I modeled the Class 70,
right?
The Heisler, the caboose, and every single freight car you see, at least framed down. The hopper is the only one I didn't fully model, and that's because the hopper is stuck on top of the frame of the flat car.
Otherwise, right, I noticed that,
every single piece of rolling stock, and then those two locomotives are my doing.
I do have to ask, because I'm always curious about this, where do you actually get all the drawings for these engines? Because these are like, I imagine like some of these schematics exist, but some of them must be pretty hard to find, especially with the amount of detail you guys put into all the mechanisms and stuff.
First thing I like to start with is go to, I believe it's Texas SMU, and they have a catalog of the Baldwin specification sheets. So when a purchaser of a locomotive would inquire about purchasing and then purchase a locomotive, Baldwin Locomotive Works and the purchaser would agree on a design, and they'd agree on specs. So the spec sheets have all the data you could ever want on the locomotive. It has the boiler size, it has driving wheels, it has number of tubes, it has the paint data, and it has appliances and all sorts of good stuff. So that's a good place to start. And then the next place I go is look in online archives, see if I can find a technical drawing or an engineering plan. And if that fails, you can look in model railroading magazines or publications and try and find modeling drawings there.
As a last resort, he will call up upon one of myself or my buddies and say, hey, can you get a weird picture from this weird angle of the underside of this frame thingy?
Legit,
and then
that's awesome.
We try and get it, it's not applicable. Of course, we don't have every locomotive in the game because, many of them don't exist anymore, but a lot of them are very similar, so you can kind of take inspiration for the bits that you may not have a drawing for and at least get the general vibe correct.
The one thing I've always found amazing is like when I flip an engine in this game, there's still all the underside detail, whereas a lot of games will just be like, who cares about the underside? Like, why would that be important, right? And like you guys literally have every oh god, I'm inside the tender, but every like detail of all the piping and the brake lines and stuff. It's kind of impressive.
Yeah. We were ready for you to flip your train down the side of the canyon, so,
My philosophy when modeling is it's got to look good when it's in the bottom of the canyon. Like when you roll it over, there has to be something to look at and you can go, huh, neat.
All right, so I guess we can just get going. Hyce is, I can tell he's itching to drive that Class 7. Yeah, look at him, let him go already. You should be good on the switches. There's one that we might have to set. He's going to have to do some fun stuff because I still don't have a Y at the sawmill, so, normal.
You don't need one.
Normal things.
Push-pull, man, push-pull.
I'll deal with it. We'll find a way. I'll back the whole train up to the iron mine for you.
So I have comments of people being like, "God, just build the Y already. Like, why are you wasting so much time not building this Y?" And I'm like, guys, it's just so you can post the comment. Like I'm inside your brain now. I've got you to post that comment.
So, Con, I don't know what the timetable says on your railroad, but most railroad timetables say that we need to be 10 minutes apart, but I'm just going to assume you
Wait,
gave
10
us...
minutes on the line? I thought it was done by,
Yeah.
like, signal blocks. Like, don't you put, like, I guess back in the old days you didn't have that, right?
Not in these days. We didn't have signals on the 1800s Rio Grande or 3-foot.
I didn't have signals on the, and I've fallen off. I didn't have signals on the actual modern operations.
Yeah, the modern day versions of the Rio Grande that's still around, they still don't have signals, and they operate by something called track and time, where, you know, you as the Eureka, you own this section of track, and nobody else can come on it for the next little bit. Obviously, I'm right on your tail, which means I'm breaking timetable rules, but I'm assuming that you don't have a timetable.
So how do you measure 10 minutes, though? Because obviously if it's 10 minutes, you won't see the train that's been 10 minutes. Like, do they put a flag up and go like, hey, I passed at this time, or...
It's based on the speed. I mean, every train's trying to, has a speed limit, and based on tonnage, they should be able to make that speed limit.
Right.
And so if, we assume that you take so long to get to a certain location, and then we can leave, and if you've run into an issue, you'd send your brakeman out as a flagger on the rear to make sure that nothing bad happens to you.
Am I towing this with brakes? No, I'm just... wow, you caught up to me? Are you serious?
Yeah, I had to slam on my brakes.
I'm at 100%, 100, and I heard you slam your brakes.
I'm trying to catch up
with the caboose. It's a lot of weight for the Eureka, so...
It's only 11,000 pounds.
Boss man of the railroad, Mr. CEO. I've got a lot of stake flats with me. Am I just loading per the ratio?
Half and half. Yeah, half and
half. Okay.
Yeah, because it's still the half and half ratio, right? For the
1-to-1. So you want 1/4 lumber cars and the other.
Oh, I have no boiler pressure. Herp derp. That would explain.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, that would explain why.
You just ran your choo-choo dry. I can shove you a little bit.
Might as well at this point. It's picking up.
It's aboard.
It's about to.
We're making contact.
Oh God.
Dunk. All right, we got you.
Yeah, I had no boiler pressure. That would make sense.
All right, let's hope
it's
I don't punch
now, though.
you
We're
off
good.
anything. So.
Okay, so I have to ask, because obviously I get asked this a lot. Switches, okay? There's only like 2 switches, really. There's a left switch and a right switch. And then is there plans for more switches? Can you even talk about that? Or is there plans for like spring back switches? Was spring back switches even a thing at this time?
Spring switches on narrow gauge are incredibly uncommon, almost a non-occurrence.
Right.
East Broad Top had a couple, but only for extremely low speed turnouts. With the narrow gauge, just the size, there's not enough weight to push that back against the spring.
So what would they do there? They'd slow down before he switched and have a guy come out and flick the switch, or would they just have people like literally sitting around the railroads with switches and stuff?
Some places might have actual switchmen or people who tended a number of switches along the line, but oftentimes you just come to a stop and throw a switch and go through the switch and then stop and then have your rear brakeman or your conductor return that switch to its previous orientation.
Holy cow.
Yeah, most railroads had timetable rules for certain important switches if they were unmanned. The timetable would say, hey, this switch at this Y needs to be left facing this direction after you've gone through it, so that we can always assume that it's lined this way so that trains can operate at normal speeds. But bigger locations, they would have a dedicated switchman located at that place. And sometimes that worked, sometimes it didn't. There's plenty of great stories on the railroad of inebriated switchmen making mistakes. So.
Oh man, I feel like this whole timetable system must have really been tough too if trains were like running late or whatever, because then you'd have all this. I guess you just push the whole timetable back or whatever.
They would receive new orders on the fly.
Yeah,
Really?
They would have guys that would basically be at the wayside at stationing locations that would have basically a stick with a fork at the end of it that would hold, a little bundle of wire that had a piece of paper attached to it that would give you new orders that would supersede your old orders if something
As you're
went
driving
wrong.
by.
Because there's no radio, so you'd be flying past the next station at,
But they would have had like telegram lines and stuff back then. Like,
yes,
along the edge of the
eventually.
track.
In the very early days, they didn't. But yes, once they had telegraph, they'd communicate ahead, like, Cotton's train wrecked and it destroyed the track. You need to stop. And then the engineer would pick up, I would pick that up on the fly whenever I'd pass, the station next previous, so.
This is, Peyton, this is my, I call it the Dev Bridge. I guess I should call it the Peyton Pass, because that sounds cooler.
Very nice.
This is the bridge that I made based purely off the screenshots on the store page, which, Hyce says is completely your doing. You're the master track guy.
Yeah, it was, I think it was on our third version of the developer map because, as you have a game in alpha or pre-alpha, you run into issues where, everything gets corrupted and you have to start over. So It was my first, it was a time before we had the steel high trestle segment. So, I had to come up with something to cross that gap that you see over there by the smelter. So it took me like 35, 40 minutes to come up with that design, and it kind of just stuck.
I like it. It looks really cool. I mean, obviously you have to use rail pieces to make the wooden platform underneath that platform rail, but I think it looks like when it's all done, it looks really, really nice.
Yeah, it does look very nice. It's just, it is a lot of work.
Yeah, I actually built it. The first time I built it, I couldn't figure out how to do it, but then the second time I realized you can build it from the top down if you place foundation that snaps to pre-existing rail pieces that are just floating there magically. And it was a bit of a process, but once you figure out the process, it's actually not that bad to do it. And then
I built mine from the top down, but I never replaced trestle. I put the trestle down and then I put the track on top.
Right.
So, and albeit it is a smaller gap over there by the smelter.
All right, so see if you can spot the parts of this track that need fixing. I'm not going to say anything.
Will do.
I'm just gonna use your railroad judgment, and hopefully you won't notice, and you'll just be like, "Wow, this track is so perfect, what amazing."
From what I recall, you may experience a tightening of the sphincter and go, "Oh God!" From what I recall.
I don't know what you're talking about. This corner here looks fine. Yeah. Oh, we almost derailed. Holy cow! Are you serious? The Eureka on its own can. Okay, so
it's got a very long wheelbase.
Yeah, so I feel like these two corners, it could be a bigger radius rather than.
I feel like making a curved trestle there, or going out and then curving back with a trestle.
Yeah,
and then,
have it push out and then come back in.
Replace some of this with fill because you're up high with that ridge. You can move over to fill. That's what they would have done.
Right. So yeah, when I build my track, I call it the straight line railco, mainly because people think I'm OCD with the way I place track. I try and make it really low to the ground, minimum foundation, as hugging terrain features as best I can. Here, obviously, too, you can see that's kind of a wicked kink as well.
Yeah, you just nearly rolled the tender there.
Yeah. The Class 70 doesn't have a good time up this either.
And you have the narrow gauge philosophy is just follow the terrain to the best of your ability. And tunnels are not an option. You have two choices. You have cut and you have fill.
Right.
So you can cut. You can't cut yet in this game, but you can fill. And that's what narrow gauge railroads typically would do. You have bridge, cut, and fill as your only three options.
So that's
you gotta remember that I believe on the entire system for the Denver and Rio Grande Western, which is really the big narrow gauge railroad where a lot of the equipment is going to be coming from for the game. Almost 500 miles of track, and they had
more
two
than
tunnels. More than 500. I know that all the way to Silverton.
And that's just because tunnels are expensive and narrow gauge is cheap. Is that the
point of narrow gauge is to hug the hillside and hug the mountainside, so you avoid things like tunnels and massive cuts.
Right, stuff that costs a whole ton of money in excavation or whatever.
Correct.
So I don't know if you want to start at the bottom. Obviously, you can tell this S-bend section here is a nightmare as well. This is kind of silly.
So 3%?
Yeah. This usually derails every train.
Actually, if you can bring the locomotive back up to the top, I'm just going to walk down and just see what I want to...
Perfect.
Well, you can just leave it here.
Well, I'll bring it up so it's out of the way.
Because I don't know how many things I'm going to have to realign to get rid of.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I want to keep this as shallow as possible. If we have to go steeper than 3, if it's straighter, it's fine. The problem is when you're here, you're climbing at 3%, and then you hit this really sharp S, which just kills all your speed and your momentum, right? And that's just it's not effective. Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Almost to say this rail. These fixed it. We derailed. We just to give.
Yeah, he just put it in the ditch.
All right.
Yeah, it's
all right, guys.
I'll
get
fix
your
this.
Cups. I'll be right there. Get your cups. I'm gonna need a sample.
Yeah, it's there was an accident and yeah.
Now you have to pee in a cup.
I
Congratulations.
think Con is violating Rule G.
I really hope this Eureka isn't broken.
You'd hate to scrap a third one?
Well, this
Or is
one's
it
called
4 now?
Lucky Number 3. Yeah, so just so you know the history, Peyton, I've completely broken 2 Eurekas so far. One I left on a turntable, and the tender just vanished when I came back in. So that one got sacrificed for the greater good. And then the other one, it derailed itself on a sharp turn coming down a mountain when its brakes failed. And when I went to re-rail it, the tender just flew through the earth and is probably still falling now. So, yeah, so we're on lucky number 3.
Yeah, that's no good. The turntable bug is an interesting one because I think we've squashed it once and now it's returned. It's something to do with the turntables not saving their rotation properly when you exit, in some instances, especially earlier on. So it would just return to default orientation with the car still on it, which would...
Well, this was like right in the very
the
beginning of the
atmosphere.
game when that happened. Like the Eureka was the first engine I bought.
That's
after-
probably the OG bug then. Yeah.
And then when I went to use it, it just, or when I went to reload, it was just gone. How's the loading coming, Hyce?
I am almost fully loaded.
Oh
Still got a
God,
couple
we are
cars
so
to go.
behind schedule.
Yeah, I'm gonna start staring down your guys' gullet unless you
Yeah,
fill out
we
Form
can-
B. So, Form B being the permit to occupy the railroad, because I'm the choo-choo and I've got the authorization to run on that railroad unless you've got something that says otherwise. So.
I don't know if you can have authorization to run on a railroad that currently doesn't exist. I'm just saying, because there's currently no track where you are heading, sir.
Well, then it'll just get real interesting and we'll see how good I am with a brake.
Do you want me to clear
Sorry,
this rail all the way up to there?
No.
Okay.
I'm only cutting it back as far as I need.
Oh, gotcha.
give me
And then
that
you're gonna
curve.
like curve this out
Then I'm
further
going
to
to splice.
dodge
I'm going
that.
to splice it in. I'm
Yeah.
going to splice it in, then remove the original road bed.
The only thing I always find annoying with this, and this is just me being again like way too OCD. I've been to Hyce's world. Okay, I've seen what foundation everywhere looks like. But, I always find when I'm trying to, like, mesh 2 foundation pieces together, getting that, like, perfect alignment, of the two, like, bridge trestles or whatever, so that they look, like, perfectly visual, it's a process.
I typically don't try and put that much effort into it. I get it close.
Yeah, as long as it looks close enough, so when you're driving by, you don't see a big discrepancy. That's sort of where I'm at,
Fun little piece of trivia for those of you that enjoy the soundtrack for the game. Gotta flex that a little bit. The slow blues song that's in the game is called Form B in place because when you have track work going on with a Form B, you typically have a slow order and the song is slow. I thought that was a little tongue-in-cheek. You guys might find that a little fun.
I'm just very intently focused on what Peyton's doing here. I can't actually see what he's laying.
You can't see. I'll just explain it. I'm kind of laying at like 6 or 8 degrees. There's some issues at the moment with degrees of curvature and not calculating correctly. We're going to have some fixes for that coming very soon.
You mean when you're like using the Alt key or whatever?
Yes, they're not quite doing what they should be doing. Like when I say 24 degrees, it's more like I don't know the exact figure.
It's
but
almost
it's
double.
more like 35.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
It's kind of not anywhere close.
So,
to where
like,
it
my
should
30-degree turn that I have in places is probably death, is what you're saying.
That's really sharp.
be.
Yeah.
Yes,
in
Oh,
it's,
good.
actuality.
it is sharp by default, but with the issue with the math not being right, it's even sharper than it would be.
Yeah, 30 is, you don't really want a 30 if you're really doing it. Like the Rio Grande's max they tried to stick to 20 or 24 where they could.
Right.
They did 30 on some branch lines, and obviously their big engines were equipped for 30, but just not very fast. But right now 30 is a lot more than 30, and it gets a little saucy, so...
It seems like this bridge is more than 3% because I'm laying it at 3%, and
Yeah, well, I tried to lay it at 3% with like but according to Hyce, I might have been laying it actually steeper because of whatever.
yeah, some bugs.
Yeah.
So, talking on the bridge issue, I actually found that there's a good fix for it that I've talked about in my series, in my playthrough for now until we get updated splines. If you lay the bridge, get all the nodes for the splines placed first, and then you change the grade at the end, it lays just the same as the groundworks do. But
Really?
if you change the grade beforehand, for whatever reason it wants to lay like a sinusoid, So you get you're very shallow at the beginning and very steep in the middle, like a sine function. So that's the recommendation for now: is place all the segments of the spline, get your last one in position, and then figure out what the grade's got to be to meet the terrain transition you have. And then that will make a consistent grade the whole way across. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah, for people who don't know, when you place bridges, if you adjust the grade, it adjusts the whole bridge, not just the current piece you're on, where the foundation is just like the current piece that, goes up or down or whatever. So you can actually tweak your whole bridge after the fact. I never realized that actually would be the fix, though. That's kind of nice. That means I do have some bridges that are perfect, because there are some where I adjusted it after the fact, not knowing that was actually doing anything.
You knew the fix without knowing that it was the problem.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's always fun when that stuff happens. Oh, yeah, no, it just works great. And, sometimes, like, when we're testing stuff, sometimes that's what we run into. It's like, okay, yeah, this is how we tested this, and it works great for us. And then you send updates out to the player base of, a couple thousand people, and then they find all sorts of new inventive ways to break things.
All right, so I'm going to start doing some prompting questions, because Peyton sent me pictures.
So there's a set of wooden signs that on the far left, there's the W sign, and on the far right, there's the big T railroad crossing sign.
Yeah.
And so from left to right, you have the W sign, which is a whistle post, telling you that there is a grade crossing coming up where the train needs to provide warning to horse and buggies or early automobiles. So
you have to whistle when you hit that post?
You have to whistle at that post. Starting at that post, okay, I need to blow a grade crossing warning because I'm about to cross, a roadway. The next two are two flavors of milepost. You have the early large milepost that is Denver and Rio Grande style, and then the later type that has the black on top as a delineator that'll make it easier to read what the milepost says.
And they had text on them, like what number?
They would say like milepost and then a number. And in the case of the Rio Grande, it was miles from Denver along the main line. And, every railroad's different. And as you get to different subdivisions of the railroad, they might change. But, you will be able to number them how you'd like for your railroad. The Poncha Pass sign is a station marker or a location marker sign, and it's not going to always say Poncha Pass. That's just a demo to show what it looks like. But you can name locations on your railroad with that, and determine what station it is or what location if it's not necessarily a station, but just a passing track or a Y or the summit. Then you have the early yard limit sign, which denotes a different set of rules. When you come into the yard limit, you have a less speed limit and different rules for whistles and all sorts of things like that. And you got to be watching out for mechanical personnel working on locomotives or cars or building trains.
Right.
And then you've got a very early railroad crossing sign telling you to look out for the cars. And Peyton, I'm actually not familiar with this sign. Is this actually a sign for the
Yeah, it's off
train?
The DNRG.
That's off the DNRG. Is this for the engineer of a train, or is it for roadway users?
I think it's for roadway users. It's look out for moving cars. It might be typically used around industry.
So I've said it once. I'm going to say it again. Red Dead Redemption, horse physics in Railroads Online. Just saying. You talk a lot about horses and buggies. I'm just saying.
Well, so if you watched my tech tree video on my channel, Armagon and I talked about the Rio Grande War, the war for the Royal Gorge, where two railroads actually had basically mercenaries go out and had a shootout over who got to lay the railroad through this canyon.
Amazing.
So I'm just saying, if we're gonna go down that crazy DLC route, which we're not, by the way, it'd be very fun, but that's way out of scope. The horse physics too. That'd be great.
Horse physics, some guns, some bandits take over the railway by force.
The first railroad shooter. Yeah, it's going to be great.
You lay your track, and then there's rival factions. You can have your multiplayer buddies actually, try and hijack your train. Man.
Colin, can you do me a solid really quick?
Yeah.
Can you delete the track and groundwork in this area right here?
Sure.
So I'm about to place the spline, and it's all going to be hidden.
So all this, right?
Yeah.
Up to this bridge, or keep going past this bridge?
Up to the bridge, and then delete the stone.
The groundwork?
Stone
okay,
fills.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second set of signs that are based on rail, that is the modern set of signs, also based on Rio Grande signage. And Peyton and I got to scope a lot of these out actually together in the field back in August of last year, 2021. We were both down at the Cumbres and Toltec, and we got to go get pictures of these and look at them together, which was a lot of fun. Actually got to meet up in person and make stuff happen. The first one on the left is the more modern milepost sign, and you can see it's just a bent piece of steel that then goes over an old piece of rail. So they would take up the old rail from the railroad as they were upgrading the rail weight for heavier locomotives, and, well, rather than scrap it, which took a lot of effort to pick the rail up and move it and take it to the scrapper for not that much money, they repurposed it into signs and signposts. The next sign is has a great political statement about our tech tree. It says, "End of standard gauge." This is a real sign on the Rio Grande where they had narrow gauge and standard gauge trains. And as you came to the end of standard gauge track, you had that sign just so if you were a standard gauge train switching there or running there for whatever reason, you knew that you were about to not have one of your two rails and you were going to have a bad time if you kept moving. Because they had a lot of trackage back in the day where they just stuck a narrow gauge rail in the middle. So you had 3-rail track and 3-rail switches. And the Rio Grande's yard in Alamosa, Colorado was actually like entirely 3-rail. And they had narrow gauge engines switching standard gauge cars and standard gauge engines switching narrow gauge cars and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It was really cool. So a helpful sign. And particularly when we get a little bit further along and we're talking about having like a more detailed town with a freight depot that interchanges with standard gauge. That's where like things from the outside world, like new coal that you'll buy for your locomotives or oil, fuel, so you don't have to get it all yourself. You could buy it from the freight depot. It would come in on this standard gauge train that we won't have modeled, that kind of thing, just for flavor.
Right. But you guys have no intention of switching to standard gauge? Like, I no, didn't look at the whole tech tree or anything, but I'm assuming you're keeping with narrow, right?
Our scope is entirely narrow gauge because it's really underrepresented in the train simulator world, basically. And as well, you can really kind of get a really good picture of almost everything that went on in the narrow gauge in a package that's small enough for one video game. So it's kind of cool that we want to try and do that. But we will have Steam Workshop support eventually where we can allow for standard gauge to be created.
Yeah, they'll go nuts as soon as that happens.
The next sign that says Romeo is the more modern station sign, and Romeo was a location on the Rio Grande. Again, it's the metal version of the wooden one we were talking about earlier. Followed by the modern yard limit sign, which, again, tells you when you have to adhere to a different set of rules when you're coming into an industry or yard or anything like that. And finally, lastly, one that you guys have probably seen before because it still hangs around to this day, the crossbuck and number of tracks sign for an at-grade crossing. And this is giving me PTSD because this is what I deal with for my real job. All the signage and treatments at crossings to make sure people are safe. Gets a little ridiculous. But so railroad crossing, the crossbuck is on top, and underneath that is a sign that says how many tracks the crossing is, and you only need to have that when you have 2+ tracks. So.
And I guess you guys are putting wooden and metal signs in just for the flavor of having both, or is it actually like just is there going to be a reason for one?
When we get to economy's sake and things getting a little bit more developed in terms of companies and all that piece in the economy. The metal signs are going to be more expensive than the wooden signs, and there'll be possibly a maintenance mechanica tied to them as well. Whereas over time, the wood signs will deteriorate, fade away, and then you have to replace them. Or the metal signs will just hang around forever or for a significantly long period of time. So
yeah, it makes sense. It's actually crazy. Peyton laying this groundwork is blowing my perception of where this groundwork is supposed to be laid. I would have thought that fill like this would just roll down the mountain and that would be the end of it. You know what?
I see some areas down there where I can make it hug a little more. I just don't have quite as much distance, as I'd like. I'm trying to lay at 3.5, but, I'm losing ground.
It's always tough.
It's just the current right-of-way is dropping away from me. I'm trying to make it rejoin, but it's just continually dropping away.
You might have to go to 4, even if it's a short segment. I mean, you can still consider
I'm gonna try my best to do it at 3.5. I think it might just be I'm relaying more than I thought I was going to relay, which is fine.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's always the challenge when you're going back to do another pass on your track. Ask me how I know. Is that when you try to smooth out corners, if they ended up being, too sharp but further away from the obstacle, and you try to cut the corner, take like a more racing line approach to it, you end up getting steeper because you're taking a shorter route between those 2 points.
Yep.
And
lining up the elevation of a pre-laid track with a new track is, yeah. Are you like me? You like having all the trees like hug the rail and just having a little bit?
Not quite. I actually tend to clear cut like
just
ridiculous
whole
amounts.
Swaths of forest.
Well, I
that's
mean,
what the logger
they would have cut
railroads
it down
did,
for
right?
fuel, to be fair.
They were logging, if they cut down the trees on the right of way, they were just either taking stuff back or it was fuel. So
They literally just be like,
So-
oh, we need fuel. Let's just cut a tree, and just go with it.
that absolutely happened. Yeah.
Things you can do to make the track look better is when you're going into like a bridge like this. I'm about to probably make not like a tall bridge, but it's gonna stick out. I'm gonna curve out away from the hillside to
to make this
the arc
corner
longer, to make the straight line or the actual distance of track longer, which thus allows me to descend more. Good thing you can do is approach your bridge with a stone segment, because the bridges don't look super great, because they don't have abutments yet. They don't look amazing going directly into groundwork like the fill material.
right.
But the stone wall looks like a better transition to a bridge than wood touching dirt.
I guess that's the other thing with fill material. Like obviously, you guys now you have this like sharp wall when you stop your fill. But I guess in real life that would have been sloped like down, right? Like that would have been just
Yeah, it would slope down, like a pile, and then you'd have wood or stone abutments to hold that material back,
right.
Right at the top so that you could join the bridge.
It's kind of crazy because like all these bridges and structures, and every time I talk to you guys, or like I was talking to Hyce the other day, and he sends me pictures of like real life bridges, and they're almost identical models to like real vintage bridges that exist on these railroads. It's not like you guys just were like, oh, let's make up what this wooden bridge would look like. Like these are all legitimate structures that they were using on these railroads. It's kind of cool, actually.
There's been a community before us, particularly in like the model railroad stuff. I mean, we're not talking toy trains. We're talking model railroad type folks that have tried to recreate all that stuff. And as a part of that, they've done the research and they've come up with the drawings. And, this is this bridge. Like this is bridge 42 on this railroad.
Right.
We have the drawings for that bridge, even though the bridge has been gone for 50 years. They've done it out, and it's like, well, we could make up something that's whatever, or, we've got these drawings here that we could just follow, and it makes it that much more historical. So, I mean, why not?
So you're gonna, I'll show the bridge variants on screen, but you're gonna add, you're gonna keep with the existing bridges and then just add more variants of bridges. And is there gonna be a reason for it, or is it just gonna be, aesthetics for your own choosing?
I guess I have to explain a little bit of how bridges are constructed. So the top bridges are constructed in spans or segments, but the supports are called beds.
He's here. You might want to chill there, bud.
Oh yeah,
Roger. I didn't know
I
if I
can
was
hear
coming to
your
you.
whistle. There is an open chunk of track right here.
Roger.
I'm about to connect it up as a stopgap, temporary. But what we want is, or rather, I want more realistic bridges. It's cool to have the bridge with all this extra geometry. It's as tall as you need it to be. It's like 49 feet tall or something like that for the current bridge model. But sometimes you want a bridge that reflects the height that you need it to be. And you want the cross bracing to be slightly offset in whatever way. A lot of bridges that be on hillsides, one side of the bridge would be on a footing higher than the other. So that's a small visual thing, but things like that, I want to do a more complicated bridge system to actually go individually and choose each span what bridge or like sub-variant of a specific bridge is.
Gotcha.
So that you could kind of like blueprint it all together and make something that looks unique. Every bridge it's made of the same components, but it's going to be unique to your railroad or to just the use case.
I was just going to hop out and say, now that I can tell this to you in person, even though we're still talking. Oh, wait, it's rolling away. Never mind!
He hopped out and his train is still...
It's got the brake wide on, but apparently I've got enough weight that my brake is not cool anymore. So, bye, guys.
See ya.
What Peyton's getting at is that ultimately we're not there yet, but it's what we want to get to, and we don't really know when we're going to get there because a lot of these things are considerably challenging problems to solve, and the Unreal Engine likes to fight us a long way down the way. But we ultimately want to get to the point where we're doing procedural bridge supports and procedural bridge
like that
generation.
second picture that Peyton sent that I'll put on the screen where it shows like the different support heights as the terrain forms underneath.
Vent heights. I think those are the two on the. There's actually one on the end for each abutment. That's a 6 foot, and then the two closer are 12 foot, and that tall one is it's 18. No, it isn't 18. It'd be 30 foot.
Right.
So I'm using a standard diagram and using the actual methodology. It says, at over 18 feet, put this brace in. I'm trying to construct it all in that sort of grain, and then all those little components will mesh together, procedurally or modularly when you build a bridge. That also goes for, then I need to make this bridge segment that we have, I need to make that modular or procedural, and then I have to make in-betweens to like convert between the two bridge types, because I also want that to be possible where you have the picture I sent you, which is like the pile truss, and that's good for fairly firm areas where there's not going to be any like flowing water or dry places, and it doesn't have to be very tall, and it typically isn't on a curve, and then I want it to mesh into the actual trestle segments, so you can use pile segments, which are good for low heights and are really structurally sound, to make approaches to a larger trestle segment, which will then have like your huge gap or whatever for a river or another track to cross underneath. So each bridge and each track segment will have its own, purpose. And hopefully people use them as intended, but as we've seen with the community, they use them in unintended and fairly awesome ways.
It's so cool and kind of wonderful to see the community have that drive and desire to make those iconic structures and things out of the limited tools we've been able to put in. I mean, it takes a lot of work just to get even one asset in the game and polished and ready and functional, and even the engine house had a couple hiccups on the first go. But I mean, just know that roundhouses are going to be coming. I believe that we want to do not a procedural, but a modular roundhouse. Is that right, Peyton? Where you've got an end stall on either side, and then you can put as many interstitial stalls as you want. So you could make a
you can make
track.
it 2, you can make it 3, you can make it 5, you can make it 6, 8, whatever you want.
However many fit around your turntable. I mean, we've got great plans for all that stuff. It's just we're just trying to get there in time while making performance better and squashing bugs. So I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm trying to not hit 4%. I've been going in between 3.5 and 3 3/4. So try and eke out a little more dropping in elevation.
I can already tell. It's like I laid the track at the top section, and it's already so much smoother. Like there's no kinks that are like gross and ugly. The curves are nice and smooth. Yeah, but just
sacrificed height, to get that.
Yeah, but that's okay. Because we have a lot of space where it ramps down at the very bottom. So even if we're way above that coming down, like we can build a whole new ramp. You know what I mean? Like it has a lot of space.
Yeah, I know.
Pretty much just relaying this whole track for me. It's wonderful.
So one of the things I do, like when I lay track, is I try and put a couple little details in. So I'll do one here in a second, but you'll see if you look at pictures of narrow gauge railroads, you'll find that oftentimes you'll have very kind of short, almost unnecessary trestle segments.
Yeah, you put one back at the top there too.
Those would have typically been like a pile trestle or something along that vein. But the point is, in the real world, you have to care about running water and water moving downhill.
Right.
So if you have this huge fill, on the side of a mountain, first, you don't want your track to get washed away. You want that to stay as dry as possible. But also, if you're filling in a flatter area and trying to like come off a hill or whatever, you can accidentally make retention ponds just with the track, you know, in the groundwork. So those are called ditch crossers, and they're just, I tend to stick them in for the sake of realism.
I actually built those into on my other side of the iron mine line. I've actually built a bunch of those in too for the exact same reason. It bothers me when I place foundation where it creates like a natural like divot, because then I'm like, there's, you know, it's same thought.
Water is the enemy of track, let me tell you. The top of the railroad at the Railroad Museum where I used to work, it was really, I mean, I told a great story about 491, our big K37, moving the track around and put it where she wanted it because it wasn't ballasted right, in my second episode on my playthrough. But basically, I mean, it came down to the point that also the moisture was wrong. The ground was too damp as well because there's no drainage. So they put in this big fill that wasn't made out of, you know, crushed rock that was going to hold anything. It was pretty much dirt and smooth rock and everything. And anytime it got wet, and guess what? Spoiler, in Colorado it snows. Anytime it got wet, I mean, it just held all of that water in, and it just made it really easy for things to flow. And so the engine was able to put the track right where it wanted it, and, you know, you didn't have a good railroad anymore. So we had to put in a huge French drain all the way down the side, contoured it, made it drain away to the right location and everything. It was a huge project. I mean, just absolutely critical. I mean, I don't think we'll get into that level of nerdy detail for the sake of this game, because laying a route is hard enough as it is.
I know we talked about it before, but you had said sand for like rain and stuff. So I guess there is a plan eventually to have like that kind of weathering and like well, not weathering at the track, but like rain that you have to deal with when you're driving your trains.
Yeah. So plan for day-night cycle and dynamic weather. So it'll start to rain and you'll have less traction, or it'll snow and you'll have less traction.
Right.
Those kinds of things, for sure.
Wow, Hyce couldn't even load the ratio correctly. What a guy.
Isn't it 4 and 8?
No, you loaded the wrong ratio. It's 1-to-1 cars, not 1-to-1 products anymore. Dev doesn't even know his own.
Wait, when did that happen?
You guys changed it. What do you mean? You're the one who changed it.
You may have changed it. I didn't look at it.
It's 1-to-1 cars now, not 1-to-1 products. This is the old ratio.
Oh, well, nailed it.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll just have to do the opposite next time I come up. All right, I'm gonna cut back in. Actually, you know, I'm gonna let Hyce cut back in. Give me your best through the magic of editing, Hyce.
Through the magic of editing. Look at this, the railroad. It's so pretty. It's almost as if the timetable has been edited right before me, and now we have this scenic vista sprawling with bridges and cuts and abutments and all these beautiful things. Flawless. And I can run my train at high speed without falling down the canyon floor because Con's track laying is garbage.
Yeah, well now it's Peyton's track.
Speed limit.
What is the speed limit?
Slow order is 17.
You got a slow order in your track.
Yeah, we can do that.
This is perfect though. This is Peyton's track, so if it breaks or we derail, it is entirely Peyton's fault. Also, you've got your tender
handle the
open.
train. It's not my fault.
You know, you might need to look in there later or get some, you know, cinders in the water. It always helps the seats on the injectors stay nice and pretty when you run hard particulate through them. So, you know.
Oh yeah. Don't they have to like scrub out all the pipes in the boiler every so often because it like gets all the particulates built up in it or whatever?
Yeah, you have to do a boiler wash mandated by the FRA every 30 days, and then the flues on the inside from the firebox get plugged up too, and you have to run them out probably every 6 months or a year. It's a lot of work and not very fun or clean work either. So
this is great though. This track is like Class 70 approved now.
That next curve up there, like after the bridge, is probably the tightest curve.
Yeah.
And it looks like it is broader than my entire railroad, so I'm going to send it because we're still not even at full speed here because we got
it's all
a
little
heavy train.
There's a kink in this bridge I got to fix later, just a little, not really a kink, it's just kind of like a little squirrely section of the...
Yeah, it should go more straight line between the two and be slightly
that can just be fixed with the rail though. That's not a foundation issue.
That's the sharpest turn right there. I should have Peyton fix all my track.
I've had a lot of people
have
Peyton build your whole world.
Well, you already had me build the whole dev save, man. I can't do that.
Well, you know.
I can't do it again.
Perfect.
I'll hop off and get that tree once you pass.
Yeah, the MOW. I guess you are MOW, so yeah, take care of that, and hopefully it doesn't fall on the train.
What am I,
That'd be a bit
master
of a damper.
surveyor?
Master surveyor, indeed.
Oh yeah, that was. I don't know if you guys added that or if that was always a thing, but that happened to Dapper once, where the first time he derailed like a train by launching a tree into the train, and it just sent the train flying across the map.
They have physics.
Yeah,
they
it's
probably
it's
shouldn't,
that
but
day.
it's really hilarious when they do that. So
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to change it.
Yeah, you cut down a tree and it just gets yeeted to Kingdom Come.
It's a space program. You just
Yeah.
gotta, grab on, hold tight.
There is going to be a Eureka on the track with full brakes on, up ahead.
Well, I mean, we can shove her out of the way. It's
Yeah,
not too
it-
big of a deal.
Probably can.
I would consider that a success.
It's really funny to me that the Class 70 is like the big boy in the game right now, because I've shoved the C19, which is the modernized Class 70 around, with the K37, which is one of the bigger engines on the tree, and it really doesn't do much. Like, it does not provide much stopping power for a K37.
Yeah, I guess with the tech tree. Oh my god, that was a shove and a half. I guess with the tech tree, you are going to have some bigger engines than the Class 70 at some point, right? Like some really
Considerably larger. I mean, up to something like 5 times the tractive effort. And I was talking with Armagon the other day, maybe even like 10 times the tractive effort if he listens to me. So
Oh, you want the proposals, don't you?
I want the proposed 2882. The Rio Grande had a proposed 2882. He started talking about these proposed shays and stuff, and it was like, well, they had a proposed 2882 that had 100,000 pounds of tractive effort. That was narrow.
Literally
gauge.
a standard gauge mallet, but on narrow gauge. In
Just
terms of
the
its power.
biggest chunk of a choo-choo. And I mean, it's like, what a fitting end to your tech tree. I mean, come on.
I'm totally a big fan of having a huge engine, right? But then I hope to God loading a car becomes faster before the big engine.
Because it's just going to slow.
Because you're going to load like 100 cars and it'll take you 6 years and you'll be...
Yeah, we've believe us, we've talked about a lot of different solutions for the loading the car thing, because a lot of people will note you start to get longer trains, and it was described by one of my friends as painfully interactive. And it's not even stuff that the train crew would really do. You would just show up and the train would be loaded, or the industry would load it. So
Right, you show up, pick up your load, and...
would be load.
Yeah.
we're talking about queuing loading or upgraded cranes that can load multiples at once. Different stuff like that, or faster cranes. There's a number of different solutions, but they're all in the works and coming down the pipeline eventually. So
I'm just
stay
getting
tuned.
this out of the way so that when I unload... I guess I should go unload. That would help.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not...
No one's
I'm
working
not
for the
in your
man right
company.
now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's slave labor for you. I was free train crew, so
Yeah,
I mean,
you didn't even bring the right load anyway. Like, what is this?
Okay, I brought the old load, which I didn't realize changed, which explains a lot on my own save why the numbers weren't adding up. So,
Yeah.
but to be fair, I was trying to run a Eureka, and I built a 4% railroad, and lumber cars are scary on 4% grades. So,
I can't believe it. Brings the wrong load.
brings
Brings wrong load. Unbelievable.
Surprised Pikachu face.
Yeah. What a guy.
Well, you'll fix it, and you can just talk smack about me in your next episode.
Yeah. No, it's perfect.
Look at this. You got 160 out of 290, so you're going to have a fair amount of
Yeah, and I
iron
just
ore
did a
here once
run
we
of
unload
50
this.
in my last episode with I actually ran a
That's
back
right.
up.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
it doesn't matter.
No.
Wait, that one might have gone in.
Did it go?
It might have.
I was realizing I was trying to grab the brake, and I was grabbing the wrong thing. So
It doesn't really matter
Yeah.
even if it didn't, because we have an excess of beams. We need to go back half a car.
what? I don't know what you're talking about. You've got storage for these.
Yeah, no, that's true. The storage has been increased, which is good.
All right, here we go. Yeah, I saw the gravity train episode. I was wondering what you did with the Heisler. I was gonna say.
I ran back and got it afterwards. Thanks for asking.
It's like
I didn't know what else to do. I was like, I'm not going to let it free float. It'll probably just end up derailed somewhere. So I just ran all the way back up and had to pick it up and then grab my trades and brought them back to the freight depot.
See, I spawned into the world, spawning in at your freight depot, and I thought you were just being this gracious, thinking of me host, right? that you left me a Heisler because I'm Hyce at the iron mine because that's where I spawned in. But no, you just okay.
Yeah, no, it was an adventure. But that's that. I guess there's only one last thing to talk about because Peyton did send me one other picture, and we were talking about it just now. The mega iron ore car, like this mega car that you sent.
Oh, the 30-foot high side gondola.
Yeah.
Blessed be the gone.
Blessed be the gone.
So that thing's just a regular car, but twice as long or something, and holds a bajillion iron, or what?
Well, so our current stock is like 24 foot, right, Peyton?
Yeah, 23.7, something like
23,
that.
so, short. So, I mean, you're getting another 7 foot, or, a little bit over 2 meters for those of us that like the sane unit of measurement.
Right.
So you're getting about a 30-foot long car, and I don't know what the capacity is. What's the capacity on those high sides?
I think it's around 750 cubic feet, maybe, something like
750 that. We'll figure out exactly what it means.
I don't have the full
cargo.
With me, so.
But they're considerably longer, and being a high side gon, I mean, they'll probably be able to hold more than our current hoppers do. But they're also the first cars that are going to have straight air brakes equipped on them. Our current units in-game are metric tons, not imperial tons. So, 1,000 kilograms, which is 2,200 pounds. So the current gon holding 10 tons is actually, whatever that is, 22,000 pounds. So 11 imperial tons. So you're getting, a bit more than 50% increase with the high side gon. So that's going to be...
The benefit of the gondola is that it just carries any bulk load. I don't have any pictures I can share because they come from our guys, but we have pictures of them loaded with lumber, loaded with beams, loaded with mine carts of all things. Just anything that will go in there can go in there.
Right.
Betsy even.
Yeah, right, Betsy. So it would be a more flexible cart rather than having to bring specific carts for specific loads.
Yeah,
somewhat, yeah.
Well, thanks for doing all my work today, guys. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, boss.
You're welcome.
I know Hyce has a YouTube channel. Do you have a YouTube channel as well, Peyton, or do you want any sort of shout out?
I do. I'll give you the links some later date when I actually have some content on there.
Sounds good. I'll throw in the description, whatever. But yeah, of course, let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you want to see more episodes with the devs, I'll harass them to come build more of my railroad, and maybe we'll run some trains and stuff. But yeah, let us know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye.